I am a deeply lazy person, and I mean that in the most literal sense. If a financial strategy requires me to actively do something every week, I will eventually stop doing it. I've tried budgeting apps, I've tried tracking every purchase, I've tried sitting down at the end of each month and reviewing where my money went. I quit every single one of those things within about 6 weeks. And yet, despite being genuinely lazy about my finances, I've built more wealth in the last 5 years than in the entire decade before it. The reason is that I stopped trying to fix my discipline and started building systems that don't require any. My name is Tom. This channel is for people who want to be financially free but are not interested in making personal finance a second job. Everything I talk about here is stuff that works while you're not looking at it. If that sounds like you, hit subscribe. Today, I'm going to walk you through 5 habits, each one anchored around $100, that once set up require essentially zero ongoing effort and collectively do more for your financial future than almost anything else you could spend your time on. Here's the frame I want you to hold for this entire video. There are 2 types of financial moves, active and passive. Active moves require your ongoing attention, budgeting, rebalancing, researching stocks, tracking expenses. These are fine if you're wired for it. Most people aren't, and the data shows it. The average person who actively manages their investments underperforms someone who sets up an index fund and ignores it, specifically because the active manager keeps making emotional decisions. Passive moves are setups. You do work once, the system runs indefinitely, and your only job is to not touch it. Every single habit in this video is a passive move. You do it once, maybe spend 20 minutes, and then it runs without you. I want to be honest about something up front. None of these habits are secret. You've probably heard of most of them in some form, but knowing about something and having it set up and running are 2 completely different things. I knew about all 5 of these habits years before I actually did them. The gap between knowing and doing cost me real money. Money I cannot get back because the compounding years are gone. So this video isn't about information. It's about getting you to actually set these things up before you close the tab. Habit 1. The $100 that disappears before you can spend it. This is the foundation, and if you only do one thing from this video, make it this one. Open a Roth IRA. Fidelity, Schwab, or Vanguard. All free, no minimums. Pick a total market index fund like FZROX or VTSAX, and set up an automatic transfer of $100 on the same day your paycheck hits. Then close the app and don't look at it again for 6 months. Has nothing to do with the $100 specifically. It works because of sequence. When you save last, earn, spend, save what's left, the leftover rounds down to 0 almost every time because spending expands to fill whatever space is available. When you save first and automate it, the $100 is gone before your brain registers it as available money. You cannot make a spending decision about money you cannot see. The automation does the work that willpower was supposed to do, and unlike willpower, automation doesn't get tired, doesn't have bad weeks, and doesn't decide to take a month off. Here's what $100 a month actually produces over time, invested in a broad market index fund averaging roughly 10% annually, which is the historical average of the S&P 500 in nominal terms since 1957. After 10 years, about $20,000. After 20 years, about $76,000. After 30 years, roughly $227,000. After 40 years, somewhere around $637,000. You contributed $48,000 of your own money over those 40 years. The rest, nearly $590,000, came from compounding, from time, not from you doing anything. The lazy investor wins this one, because checking your portfolio and making moves is statistically more likely to hurt your returns than help them. The best thing you can do after setting this up is forget it exists. One addition: every time your income goes up, add $25 to the automatic transfer before you ever see the raise in your account. Not the whole raise, just $25. Your lifestyle doesn't notice $25. Your future self notices it enormously. The 2026 contribution limit for a Roth IRA is $7,500 if you're under 50. That's the ceiling you're eventually working toward, $25 at a time. Habit 2. The $100 that fires your bank. This one took me embarrassingly long to do because it seemed like too small a thing to bother with. I was keeping my emergency fund, about $8,000 at the time, in a regular savings account at my primary bank, earning 0.01% interest. That $8,000 was making me approximately 80 cents a year. 80 cents! High-yield savings accounts at online banks, Marcus by Goldman Sachs, Ally, SoFi, and others, were paying somewhere between 4% and 5% during the same period. Moving that same $8,000 from my regular savings account to a high-yield savings account took about 15 minutes and $0. In the first year, instead of 80 cents, that $8,000 generated over $350. Same money, same zero effort on my part. Completely different output. The $100 connection here is this. You need a minimum balance to make this worthwhile, and $100 is the floor. If you don't have an emergency fund yet, put $100 into a high-yield savings account today and automate an additional $100 per month into it until you have 3 to 6 months of expenses sitting there. This money isn't for investing. It's a buffer that prevents you from making terrible financial decisions under pressure, like pulling money out of your investment account during a market crash, or putting a car repair on a credit card at 22% interest because you had no other option. The emergency fund doesn't make you rich directly. It stops you from getting poor in ways you didn't see coming. Rates on high-yield savings accounts float with the federal funds rate, so I can't give you a specific number that will still be accurate when you watch this. What I can tell you is that whatever any major online bank is paying right now is almost certainly dramatically more than what your primary bank is paying. Check today. Move the money, set up the auto transfer. The 15 minutes is worth it. Habit 3. The $100 that makes your boss pay you twice. If your employer offers a 401k match and you are not capturing the full match, you are leaving free money on the table every single pay period. I don't use that phrase lightly because it gets overused, but in this case, it is literally true. Here's how the math works. A common employer match is 50 cents for every dollar you contribute, up to 6% of your salary. If you make $60,000 a year and you contribute 6%, that's $300 a month, $3,600 a year, your employer adds another $1,800. That $1,800 is a 50% instant return on your $3,600 before the money has been invested for a single day. There is no investment vehicle on earth that reliably delivers a guaranteed 50% instant return. It does not exist. The match is the closest thing to free money in personal finance, and the only requirement to get it is contributing enough to trigger it. Now, the $100 entry point here is this. If you're not currently contributing to your 401k at all, start with $100 a month. That will likely not capture the full match unless your salary is very low, but it gets the account active, it gets you in the habit, and it gives you something to increase. Figure out exactly what percentage of your salary you need to contribute to get the full employer match. Your HR department or your 401k provider can tell you this in one email, and then set that as your target. Close the gap between where you are and the full match before you do almost anything else financially. The match is the highest return move available to most employed people. Quick pause. If this is actually useful, hit the like button. It costs you nothing, and it helps this reach people who need it. 2 more habits to go, and the last one is the one most people overlook entirely. Habit 4. The $100 that plugs the leak. This habit is different from the others because it's not about adding money to an account. It's about stopping money from disappearing on a schedule you've probably stopped noticing. Every month, most people are paying for things they don't actively use, don't genuinely value, or could replace with a better option for free. Subscription services they signed up for and forgot. Insurance premiums they've never compared. Bank fees they just accept as a cost of having a bank. Phone plans they chose 3 years ago and never revisited. Gym memberships they keep as a form of aspirational spending. I'm not talking about the things you actually use and enjoy. Keep those. I'm talking about the ones that would survive a spending audit only because you haven't done one. Here's what I want you to do. and I want to be specific because vague advice is useless. Open your last 3 months of bank statements and credit card statements. Go line by line. Every recurring charge, every subscription, every automatic renewal, every monthly fee, write it down. Circle the ones you could cancel today without your life changing meaningfully. Now cancel them or call to negotiate a lower rate. A 1-hour audit like this typically frees up $100 to $200 a month for people who haven't done it recently. That's money that was already leaving your account. It wasn't doing anything for you. Once you found it, automate the freed up amount straight into your investment account. The lazy part is that you only have to do this audit once every year or so. Set a calendar reminder, 1 hour per year. The reason this habit is on the list at the $100 level is that most people, when they do this audit honestly, find at least $100 in monthly spending they don't miss. I found $140 the first time I did mine, 2 subscriptions I'd forgotten existed, an insurance policy I was overpaying on by about $60 a month compared to a competitor, and a bank account with a monthly fee that I could eliminate by switching to a free online bank. $140 a month, automated into investments at 8% returns over 30 years, is roughly $213,000. That money was already leaving my account. I just redirected where it was going. Habit 5. The $100 that raises your floor forever. This is the habit that doesn't show up in traditional personal finance content because it doesn't fit neatly into the invest and compound narrative. But it might be the one with the highest return on investment of all 5, especially if you're earlier in your career. The 5 habits in this video are all about optimizing the money that flows through your life. But there's a ceiling on how much optimization can do if the river itself is small. The 5th habit is spending $100, deliberately, strategically, one time, on something that permanently raises your earning capacity. A certification in a skill the market currently pays well for. A specific course that addresses a gap keeping you from a promotion or a higher paying role. A book that gives you a framework your field values. A tool that makes you meaningfully faster at something clients or employers pay you for. I want to be precise about what I mean here because invest in yourself is advice so vague it has become meaningless. I'm not talking about general self-improvement or motivational content. I'm talking about a specific skill that has a specific market value and a specific resource that will close a specific gap. Before you spend the $100, ask 3 questions. First, is there a direct line between learning this and earning more money or getting a promotion? Second, can I point to people who learned this and got paid more as a result? Third, does this raise my floor? Meaning, will this skill be valuable even if my current job disappears tomorrow? If the answer to all 3 is yes, the $100 is not an expense. It's an acquisition. A single skill upgrade that moves your hourly rate from $25 to $35, not an unlikely shift in many fields, is worth roughly $20,000 a year in additional income over a full-time schedule. That $20,000 a year, if you invest even half of it, is a wealth trajectory that changes your entire financial picture. The $100 you spend once to get there is the smallest part of the equation. The leverage is enormous. This is the only habit on this list that doesn't compound passively. You have to identify the right skill, do the learning, and apply it. But it's also the habit with the highest possible return, because it changes the size of every river that flows through all the other habits. The total monthly effort required to maintain all 5 of these things, once they're set up, is roughly 0. You don't have to track anything. You don't have to make decisions. You don't have to resist temptation every time you get paid. The systems make the decisions for you, automatically, in the direction of your future. That is the entire point. The ambitious but lazy person doesn't win by grinding harder on financial discipline. They win by designing a life where the default behavior builds wealth without requiring ongoing heroics. There is one real barrier to this working, and it has nothing to do with income level, financial sophistication, or access to information. It's inertia. The gap between knowing what to do and actually opening the account, setting up the transfer, and letting it run. I know this because I lived in that gap for years. I understood compound interest intellectually. I knew what a Roth IRA was. I had read enough to know that index funds outperform active management over long periods. I knew all of this, and I still had almost nothing to show for it because I never converted the knowledge into a running system. The version of me sitting across from Marcus at that dinner table, looking at his account in disbelief, was not a less informed version of me. I knew the same things he knew. I just hadn't done them. So here's what I want you to do right now, before you move on to the next video. Pick one of the 5 habits, just one, the one that feels most immediately applicable, and spend 20 minutes setting it up today. Not this week, today. Open the account, set the transfer, send the one email to HR. The ambitious part of you already knows this is the right move. The lazy part of you is looking for a reason to do it later. Don't let later win. Later is where good intentions go to die. The best time to start any of these was 5 years ago. The second best time is before you close this tab. I'll see you in the next one.